Thank you for downloading this episode of the Physicians Gallery podcast. We have expanded our gallery. It's free to visit with no need to book a ticket. Over the next few months, we'll be exploring some of the fascinating objects we now have on display, from alchemical scrolls and battlefield medicine at Culloden to bloodletting and homeopathy. Please support us and help us to reach new audiences by liking, following, or leaving a comment on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. And please do pay a visit to our gallery when you're next in Edinburgh. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Daisy Cunynghame, the Physicians Gallery's Heritage Manager.
And I'm Rachel Forrest. I'm the Physicians Gallery's Heritage Engagement Coordinator.
And our object today is the Ripley Scroll. So this is an alchemical scroll that is on permanent display in our Physicians Gallery. And this is part one, because this is so full of stories and different mythical beings that we cannot get through it all in one episode. I feel like we might have to hold each other's hands and support each other through this, because alchemy is weird and complicated. So this alchemical manuscript is a scroll, parchment scroll, that is about 6 meters long. We don't know the exact date that it was made. It most likely dates from the 1400s, but it could be 1500s. And it uses verse and imagery to tell you how to create the Philosopher's Stone. So that's the whole point of it, is poems and pictures, sort of like a graphic novel. It tells a story that you go through in order, and if you follow all the steps, you are supposed to be able to create the Philosopher's Stone. I will come back to what the Philosopher's Stone is in a moment. But the scroll is named after a 1400s alchemist called George Ripley, so that's why it's called the Ripley Scroll. And he was a cleric, a religious figure in Yorkshire. And according to the mythology of alchemy, this man, Ripley, was supposed to have been the only person to have ultimately discovered the riddle or solved the secret to the Philosopher's Stone. He gets referenced a lot. So there's lots of different alchemical books and manuscripts and things that mention Ripley. His name comes up over and over again because he becomes this sort of really central figure in the story of alchemy. We don't know who actually made this scroll. It's very unlikely that Ripley made this scroll, but the idea is that it tells his story. It tells the steps that he laid out on how to perform alchemy. The scroll covers two things, which are kind of the two main principles of what alchemy is all about. One of which is making the Philosopher's Stone. Now, the Philosopher's Stone, we never get a clear description of what it looks like, but the Philosopher's Stone is an object which is capable of transforming base metals, so non-valuable metals, into gold. So it's the secret to ultimate wealth. And the second thing it does, and this is why it fits in with us as a medical college, is that it is supposed to contain the secret to an elixir of eternal life. This is supposed to cure every known possible disease and also make you live forever.
So this means if you have this Philosopher's Stone, you can be immortal, healthy while being immortal, and be really, really rich.
Yes. It's no wonder people got really into alchemy.
Yeah.
Now, the intriguing and also frustrating thing about this scroll and about alchemy in general is that, my God, they loved symbols and allegories, and they loved being obtuse.
Yeah, this is why alchemy confuses me so much, because it's all very cryptic. It's supposed to be a how-to guide, but they don't list the steps. It's not like, step 1, find this ingredient. Step 2, mix it with this in a bowl. Like, they just don't do that.
No, they don't. And there's probably a couple of reasons for that. One of which is that sometimes it was all just a big con and they didn't know what the steps were. But even if they thought they had cracked it, again, I'm not implying that I think that alchemy is real, but if they believed that they had cracked it, they would put it in, allegory and symbol so that no one else could steal their secret. So there was a logic to why you would do it that way, but it is a level of obtuseness which blows any World War II code system out of the water in terms of complexity. So, what I'm going to do in this and the next couple of episodes is talk through what you see on the scroll from top to bottom. It is also, the images are on our website. We can link to those images in the podcast blurb so that you can go and have a look yourself if you want. But I'll just go from top to bottom. First couple of scenes in this episode, and then more in following episodes. So you start. The scene is set with a giant man, a gigantic bearded man who is Hermes, and he is holding a flask. Now, it already gets complicated because there was a Greek god called Hermes. It's not him.
I
It's
thought it was him.
it's not him. It was a man who's it's complicated.
Who else is called Hermes?
Greek, Roman, and Egyptian mythology really bleeds into each other. And so you have the Greek god Hermes, but then later you have an Egyptian sage called Hermes. Some versions of the mythology, they're the same person, sometimes they're not.
Oh my goodness, I thought it was all just one man.
I know. Oh, I when I start getting into, when mythology starts to cross over, when, you know, a Greek god sort of becomes a Roman god and they have different names, but they're kind of, they have shit, you know, oh God, it gets so
Yeah.
complicated. And Hermes is credited with inventing alchemy. Now, again, this is obviously a story, a legend, rather than objective fact. But this is the idea. The man at the top with a massive beard who's holding a big flask invented alchemy, and that's why he's there at the top. He is holding everything in his arms. So he's holding this giant flask which contains alchemy, essentially. So, and it's this huge egg-shaped flask. So is there a better way of describing it than egg-shaped? It's teardrop-shaped, perhaps.
Teardrop is perfect.
Yes. And he's holding it over a furnace, so it's cooking. And on the side of the flask, and this just gives you a hint at how they tend to write things when they're writing alchemical texts, it says, quote, "You must make water of the earth, and earth of the air, and air of the fire, and fire of the earth."
Well, that makes no sense.
Just do that. That's it.
So easy.
There are a lot of things within things. So there's this gigantic flask that he's holding. Within the flask are 8 disc shapes, circular shapes, and each one of those contains an image. So again, it's a story within a story. So each one of those discs has a picture that tells you the stages of alchemy. So it's a kind of a replica of the full scroll in a mini version. They love doing that. They love things within things. In each one of these discs is another teardrop-shaped flask. And in turn, each one of these teardrop-shaped flasks contains homunculi.
I've never heard that word before.
Homunculi is a term that's particularly associated with alchemy, and it refers to the creation of a tiny little person.
Oh.
So a homunculi is a tiny person that is created as part of the alchemical process. So I've probably already lost everybody because there's a massive flask that contains discs, that then contains smaller flasks, that then contain tiny people.
And how would you use homunculi in a sentence? Would you say, I homunculized and made this tiny person? Or I homunculized this person?
No, it's more, imagine the word homunculi is used when you would use the word human.
Oh, okay. So here's a homunculi.
Yeah, John is a homunculi. Look over there, there's 3 homunculi. You know, it's that kind of...
Oh, okay.
But it's probably not a word that's necessary to remember because you will almost certainly never ever use it again in conversation.
I'm going to start using it. Going to bring it back.
And in the center, and I can only apologize to everyone for the enormous list of things, in the center is a tiny Hermes. So Hermes holding a flask containing discs which contain smaller flasks which contain homunculi, and a tiny Hermes. So Hermes is holding Hermes. Big Hermes holds tiny Hermes.
With a whole bunch of other stuff around and in the middle of all that.
Yeah, and tiny Hermes presents a book about alchemy to George Ripley. So the alleged author of this scroll is receiving the secrets, the alchemical secrets, from Hermes the sage.
Okay, so Ripley didn't discover all this. He was given it by tiny Hermes.
I think that's the idea. It was almost kind of revealed to him, Sermon on the Mount style or something like that.
Okay.
There's also a frog, because they just like frogs. There's a bunch of frogs in alchemy. You'll get just frogs.
Is the frog just like the plucky sidekick?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, somebody listening to this who knows all about alchemy will be like, no. It's not a fluffy sidekick. Everything has meaning. Everything has meaning upon meaning. So, recap from the whole first scene. Big Hermes holding flask containing instructions as to what to do, and tiny people, tiny Hermes, frog. There will not be a quiz at any point. So, the second scene. Below all of that is a furnace. That's what's heating the flask above it. And there's a lot of fire involved. Fire is very crucial in alchemy for changing the states of things. So it's not just obviously creating fire or even cooking things. It is moving between two states. It's something that causes a reaction. There's a lot of alchemy which does really feel like very early chemistry. And there is definitely a through line from a lot of these early alchemical ideas to chemistry and sort of scientific research. And so when you kind of mentally remove the eternal life and magicking up gold, you do see a lot of alchemy becoming chemical, becoming chemistry. So the furnace is on top of a tree. There is a sun and a moon on either side, and they are surrounded by feathers.
Having a fire on top of a tree doesn't sound like a good idea.
I mean, if only they listened to our advice, it would all be done much more sensibly.
That's how you create a wildfire. Like, having someone inside a vase, that's a suffocation risk. Having a fire on top of a tree, that's wildfire risk.
Health and safety tips for the alchemists of the past. The sun and the moon are surrounded by feathers, and there are feathers all along the scroll. Images of feathers, not real feathers. Feathers were again filled with meaning. They symbolize the changes that are taking place. And as you go through the scroll, the feathers change color. And you get towards the end, and the feathers morph into drops of falling blood. I think it's a cool visual, and I think would look great on an album cover.
Yeah. I didn't expect that.
Gnarly.
Yeah. I like it.
We start off kind of gentle in this section. There's definitely some more heavy metal feeling vibes as you get towards the end. And between the sun and the moon, there's also this slightly strange female creature which has webbed feet. So it's not a human woman, but it is a female, half human, half duck. I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
And the creature also has a dragon's tail.
Ooh.
And this is supposed to represent the Roman god Mercury, and Mercury is going to come back over and over again as we move through the Ripley Scroll. So, yeah, furnace, feathers turning into blood, sun and the moon, Mercury. Thank you for listening to this Physicians Gallery podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, click like, or leave a positive review or comment. We truly appreciate your support because it helps us reach more people. If you'd like to know more about the Physicians Gallery, our exhibitions and upcoming events, please check out our website and social media pages. Links are in the description for this episode. Thank you.